I got to about here and I saw my arm like laying in the sand. Now it was still attached, but from my bicep to my wrist, the whole thing had been ripped open. The upper bone and the lower bone in my arm had shattered to a million pieces. My hand was still intact. I don't know why I did this, but I reached down and picked my hand up, put it in front of my face, kind of turned it a little bit, and then just dropped it in the sand and let out this massive like scream as I, the severity and the reality of the situation kind of hit me. And I knew in that moment we weren't under attack. I knew in that moment that I had been the guy that had stood on and detonated the improvised explosive device.
Taking a long breath together. So Mark, I'm really, as I said, completely honoured to meet you, and we had a chat the other day and we'll go straight into the incident in 2007, and you said that you wouldn't turn the clocks back. You would not have stepped on a device. And
Right, yeah. I'm 42 years old now. I'm a very different person to who I was when I was a young 17, 18, 19 year old. We were chatting about it just now about how I used to live my life when I was young. And so I look at things differently now as I've grown and matured. But no, I don't think I would. Everything happens for a reason. I was in a specific place at a specific time for that specific incident for a reason. I survived it for a reason. I'm here today for a reason. So how can I challenge that? It's all, everything, every single choice I've made in my life from the moment I was born has led me to here. This is, if you like, destiny for me. So yeah, I wouldn't not step on it. It also opened a lot of doors for me.
I know you didn't want to go into the full, but I feel like, can we just go back to Christmas Eve 2007 and just to explain for those that might not have known what happened, and just a brief,
would it be useful if I very
description?
briefly gave you a whistle-stop tour of my career and life before, like, leading up to it?
Okay, fine.
Okay, so I wanted to join the Royal Marines since I was 15 and a half. I was coming towards the end of school, didn't listen to my parents, didn't listen to my teachers, was walking down the corridor one day at school and realised that when I finished my exams, I've got to make a decision. If I do okay, do I go to college and university, or do I go out into the real world and get a job? Now, all my friends I grew up with were older than I was, and I took a moment, had a look around, saw what they were doing. Some did go to college and university, some joined the military. I had a friend in the army, a friend in the navy. Please don't tell anybody, but I had a friend in the RAF as well. And I looked at them in this period of my life, and what they were doing resonated with me. I was into fitness from the age of about 12. I trained myself, lifted weights and did sports. And my friends would always come back on periods of leave, and they would always tell me about these fitness tests they did, the tanks they drove, the guns they shot. They always had money, they were always out partying and having fun. And so in that moment I thought, do you know what? That looks like the kind of career that I want to try. Something outdoors where I can test myself and grow. Now initially, my friend who was in the army took me to the career centre to join the army, and then when I came back, because of my age, my parents had to sign the forms, and then they told me about my uncle who we talked about earlier, who was a former Royal Marine, who at the time lived in a place called Buckfastleigh. I'm from Plymouth. Buckfastleigh is halfway between Plymouth and Exeter. So I went up and saw him one day, and he had done a full 22-year career in the Royal Marines. He went from Marine, which is our equivalent of private, up to captain. And he told me about life in the Royal Marines, and why they were different to any other branch of the military, what he had done, what he had experienced, what I could expect to do and what I could expect to experience if I was successful in choosing that path. So I went back, got the Royal Marine paperwork, got my parents to sign it, sent it off, went back to school, finished my exams. I did okay actually. You could do 10 GCSEs back then. I got all 10, 9 of them were A to C's, and I got 1 D. So I could have gone to college, potentially university, but I don't know if any of you know much about the Royal Marines, and I know we're all wired differently, but from the minute I saw that VHS recruiting cassette, I was just locked in. Like, that's all I wanted to do in my life. I just saw this group of incredible men, and I didn't even know who they were prior to meeting my uncle. And I'm like, this looks awesome. I want to see if I can do that. So I initially attended a 3-day, what they call potential Royal Marine course, which effectively, excuse my language, is a 3-day ass whipping, where they just hammer you for solid, just to try and get you to quit and to see if you're ready to potentially start recruit training. So I was very lucky, I didn't get injured. I managed to pass all of that. Went back to Plymouth, I was 17 years old at this point, with a training program and a kit list, and they said, just wait, this is 2000 I think, just wait for this letter to turn up and inviting you to start recruit training. So that came at the end of the year 2000. I was invited to start recruit training in February 2001 when I was 17, and it sucked. It was the longest, hardest, most miserable, but equally rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life. I was absolutely average at everything.
Even harder than getting to wear those. You talk about how hard that was later.
Very, very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar, mentally and physically. But I scraped my way through training. Again, I was lucky, I didn't get injured. Our training is the best part of a year if you factor in the leave periods and if you do it in one hit. I was lucky that I did it in one hit. 64 of us started, 16 of us finished. And so I turned 18. This was at the end of 2001 in November. Towards the end of training, me and my troop on camp witnessed 9/11 happen. It was a very confusing time for me as a young 18-year-old, because I didn't know what I was supposed to think, feel or act like. And I remember being in the diner on camp, we were getting some food and we saw it happen, and I looked around at everyone else because I was kind of figuring out how I'm supposed to act. Am I supposed to be like excited and happy? This is America, do we even get involved? I had no clue about anything. And so I just kind of looked around and nervously, like everyone else, went, yeah, let's go. Having no idea what war and combat was really like. So January 2002, I left the Commando Training Centre, went to Royal Marines headquarters in Plymouth, went straight into a pre-deployment training cycle to go out to Afghanistan on what was called Operation Jacana. I never ended up going out on Operation Jacana. I don't know why, I still don't know why to this day. They scaled it back massively. I think it became more of a special forces reconnaissance type thing. And so I settled into regular unit life. I stayed in the UK, and we were talking earlier, I did some boxing for the Navy and the Marines, went to Norway and trained in the Arctic and all these things. Then 2003 came around and Iraq became our focus. So I was 19 at the time. I went into another pre-deployment training cycle. This time I did deploy. I was 19 years old. I went out on what's called Operation Telic 1, where we went over, I was part of that initial wave that pushed over the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border. Went into a place called Azubai Naval Base, while some of my friends went up to the palace and the oil fields, and then spent 3.5 months in Iraq. Now this is going to sound bizarre. Are there any veterans in here? Okay, you might understand what I was saying if you did similar things, but I came back from Iraq and I had this picture in my mind of what combat was like and what war was like. And when you're in the Royal Marines or the paratroopers or the army or anything, you're constantly told by your training team how good you are and how you're better than everyone else, and you know the whole world loves you and you're amazing. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go out to Iraq and I'm going to see if I'm as good as they told me I am. And I didn't fire a single round. Like, I didn't use my weapon the entire time I was there. And I came back, and I know it sounds odd, but I felt a bit deflated. I thought I was going to be running around with a knife in my teeth, crawling through mud, taking out bad people, brushing off bullets, and none of that happened. I got a great suntan, but none of that happened. And so I came back, again, settled back into unit life, and then I met a lady. She later fell pregnant with my eldest daughter, Kezia, who's 21 now, and I was just approaching the end of my first kind of 5 years of service. And so I looked at my life, I thought, got a Green Beret, trained all over the world. The only place I didn't do was the jungle. I've deployed on operations, but now I've got a family I've got to think of. So I put my notice in to leave. Unfortunately, like 10 months into that 12-month process, we separated. I could have took my notice out, but mentally I'd already made the switch. So I ended up temporarily homeless. I was living in my car for a couple of months. I went out to South Africa, to Cape Town, and trained as a bodyguard for 6 weeks. Came back, took a job as a nightclub doorman while I was trying to get work in the close protection world, but couldn't get any. I think I was 21, maybe 22 at the time, and there was loads of work around, but I didn't really know anyone to get my foot in the door. Got in a bit of trouble working as a nightclub doorman. It was 2006, and they had just started licensing and regulating the industry. And it almost felt like no matter what you did as security in that world, you were always the bad guy. So, and it sounds like an exaggeration, but I could literally get punched in the face and then I'd get in trouble for hurting their knuckles with my jaw. It was crazy. And it all culminated in this one incident, which resulted in me nearly going to prison for defending a girl who was, we won't go into it, I wouldn't say she was being attacked, but it wasn't a great situation. And so I panicked and I looked at my life. I didn't see my daughter. I'd graduated at this point from my car to a friend's sofa. I couldn't get any work as a close protection operative, and I was working for cash in hand, like an envelope every Friday to try and survive on. So I decided to take control of my life and my situation and go back to doing what I loved and what I was good at, which was being a Royal Marines Commando. So I went back to the career centre, told the recruiting guy that I wanted to rejoin. I'd only been a civilian for 11 months, so you don't have to go through that whole year-long process again. You just do a shooting test, a weapon handling test, a fitness test. And I don't know if this is mandatory or if it was just for their own amusement, but they put me in a gas chamber and CS gassed me for a little bit to put respirators on and off. But within 4 weeks, I was back in uniform, ready to pick up where I left off. Now, when I rejoined, they gave me a choice. They said you can go to the Commando Training Centre, which is where we do all our training. It's a non-deployable unit and you're in like a instructor kind of role and you're looking after recruits. Or you can go to 40 Commando, based in Taunton, who are next on the rotation to go out to Afghanistan, because Afghanistan was now the focus again. So I chose to go to 40 Commando, joined the unit early 2007, almost immediately went into another pre-deployment training cycle. And I knew, just from the training leading up to it, that this was going to be different. This training was a lot more intentional and intense and aggressive and focused than the training that I did for Iraq. So I remember thinking, I think this is going to be like what I thought war was. Now, we deployed on the 7th of September 2007. Initially, I flew into a place called, you guys heard of Camp Bastion? So we went to Camp Bastion to acclimatise, to prep all of our kit and equipment to work and operate in the desert, to run some training serials, to make sure that when we left there, we were as well prepared as we could be. And after about 4 days, they threw me in the back of a Chinook helicopter and flew me out to the Helmand province to a place called Forward Operating Base Robinson, which was where I was to spend the next 6 months. Now, our job, our responsibilities when we got to FOB Robinson was mainly to patrol into the local areas, to conduct missions, to conduct objectives, to engage with the civilians and the villagers that lived there, to provide them with things like food and water and security, and try and make their quality of life a little bit better. And we would go out for, depending on what we were doing, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hours at a time. We'd push out 3, 4, 5, 6 miles. We'd have a mission, we'd have an objective, and we'd have a purpose and a reason to be out doing this. And we were doing really well for the first 3 months. We've been on numerous missions with numerous objectives. We'd come into contact with the enemy multiple times, and we'd never lost a firefight. We never sustained any injuries or any fatalities. So the morale within my troop and my company and FOB Robinson was pretty high. Now, on the early hours of Christmas Eve morning, me and a handful of my friends were called up to the headquarters compound of FOB Robinson, and we were given a brief on what was to be our next foot patrol. Once we knew what we were doing, we went back to our compound, started prepping all of our kit and equipment, like we'd done 1,000 times before, and then moved back up to the headquarters compound and formed up by the rear entrance of camp, where we got ready to leave. Now, the idea of this patrol, it was very, very basic, low-level infantry style soldiering. And all they really wanted us to do was to leave the rear entrance of camp in 2 sections with 8 men in each section. One was going to go north, one was going to go south. We got told to patrol the immediate perimeter of camp, pushing no more than 300 meters from the perimeter wall. And then both groups would meet at the front entrance of camp, where we were supposed to secure the location and finish up for the day. So in terms of what we've been doing, like I said to that point, this was very, very basic, very low level style patrolling. And we hadn't been given any new intelligence to give us any extra cause for concern. So in our minds, all we were doing was going out the back door, going for a little bit of a walk and then coming in the front door. So we formed up by the rear entrance of camp. The time came, they opened the back door. I was second in command of the group that went north. The other guys went south, and we went out and we did what we were tasked to do. About 6 hours into it, both groups of men now found themselves at the opposite side of camp. So now we're at the front entrance, ready to finish up for the day and go back into camp. Now the section that I was in, we're on this high piece of ground, what we called the North Fort. It was one of our target indicators if we ever came into contact with the enemy. Just beneath that, as we looked down off this high feature, you could kind of see a semi bird's eye view of Forward Operating Base Robinson. And then down beneath that, in quite a vulnerable position, was the other group of men that we had left with earlier in the day. So our job in that situation is to give them what we call overwatch, which is basically protection, where every man in my section will take a fire position, they'll look after the other section, they go into camp, get behind the perimeter wall, and then they, where they're a little bit safer, will return the favour and we'll peel off the high feature and go back in. Again, very basic, low-level stuff, nothing that we hadn't done 1,000 times before. Now, normally what you want to do, if you go firm and you stop on a patrol, is you want to get behind a building or a wall or a rock or a tree or a shrub or anything that's going to give you cover from view and cover from fire. But because we were up on this high feature, which was effectively a ridgeline, we didn't have any of those luxuries. So I looked around, assessed the kind of terrain around us and the environment, and just about where you guys are sat on the front row, about 5 meters to my front, there was a shallow bowl in the ground. So I thought, okay, if we get in that shallow bowl and we get down on our bellies, anyone that's looking up at us is going to have a very difficult time seeing us, which means they're going to have a very difficult time trying to kill us. So in my mind, in that situation, given that environment, that was the best form of protection that I could have gave my half of the section. So I jumped in, they jumped in behind me, they started taking their fire positions. There were a couple of kind of like checks that I had to do to make sure that we were as well defended as we possibly could be in case there was an attack when we were vulnerable. Once they were in position and they were happy and the section commander and his half of the section were happy, they gave me the thumbs up. And I had already selected a position for myself that was kind of halfway between the two halves of the section. And so I started slowly walking over towards it. And then as I got there and I went to get down on my stomach, as I put my right knee on the floor, that was the moment that I knelt on and detonated an improvised explosive device. Now I do remember the entire thing in graphic detail. If you think we have time, and if you guys think it's not gonna make you, I know you've just eaten breakfast, if you don't think it's gonna make you sick, I'm happy to go into detail about that, if you like.
Brief detail.
Yeah, you guys want to hear it? I'll give you the quick version of it as quickly as I can. So I walked over, went to get on my belly, put my right knee on the floor, knelt on and detonated an improvised explosive device. Now, you have to imagine what the terrain is like that we're working in. Very sandy, very dusty, very dirty. So immediately this huge dust cloud is created. So I can't see anything. Now, I didn't know what I had done. I wasn't in any pain. I could hear all the other guys around me shouting, trying to figure out what was going on. And my instinct was that we had been attacked. I thought someone had fired a rocket or a mortar on our position and we were under attack. So my adrenaline and my fight and flight had spiked and I was getting ready to get into another firefight. Now, where I was, because we knew the ground so well around us, I knew that about 600 meters to my rear, down on the low ground, there was a small rectangular forestry block and everything else around it was just flat mud fields, like farmers' fields. So in that moment, with all that chaos, I thought, well, if anyone's going to attack us, that's where they're going to do it from the trees, because they've got cover from view and cover from fire. So in my mind, I remember thinking, turn around, Mark. I was trying to turn my body around, and then I was going to crawl to the lip of this bowl and then start shooting. Because if I start shooting, you know, the rest of the guys are going to start shooting. And 200 meters away in camp, we had this big heavy machine gun, which could have, you know, torn the whole forest down. Now, after about, I think it was 4 or 5 times in my mind of saying, turn around, Mark, turn around. You know, even though I couldn't see anything because of this dust cloud, I realized that my body wasn't doing what my brain was telling it to do, and I couldn't figure out why. So I thought, okay, I'll just wait. I'll wait for this dust cloud to settle. I'll look around, assess the situation, see what's going on, and then try and make some very quick decisions on the ground. So we got to about chest height, and again, like my adrenaline is peaked at this point, and I'm terrified that some of my friends might have been hurt or killed. So I look around, you know, panicked. I can't see any of them. I think they'd all been blasted out of the area. So I carried on waiting, and eventually the dust cloud got about 6 inches from the floor, hit the ground and disappeared. Now as it disappeared, I looked down to where my legs should have been, and they had both been just completely torn off from the knees down. Now, if anyone's ever been in any sort of a traumatic accident or an incident, you might understand what I'm saying here. It's a very surreal experience. I wasn't in any pain. I don't think my brain could process what it was looking at, and it almost felt like I was dreaming. And I probably only sat there for, you know, time gets very distorted as well. Like everything outside is like slow motion, but inside it's like 1,000 miles an hour. And I probably only looked for 2, maybe 3 seconds at the most at this horror that I was looking at, not being able to process it. And then I thought about my team again and snapped out of it. So I carried on looking around. And as I looked over my right shoulder, I saw the section commander, Corporal Sean Helsby. And we had been through training together in 2001. We knew each other quite well. And his entire face, you know, all the colour drained out of his face, his eyes were like this. And so in my mind, I was thinking, like, what was I looking at then? Why does he look terrified? I couldn't understand what was happening. So I went to look back to my legs to try and give my brain like a final confirmatory signal that something terrible happened, I had to do something about it. And I got to about here, 25 press-ups, whoever that is. I got to about here, and I saw my arm, like laying in the sand. Now it was still attached, but from my bicep to my wrist, the whole thing had been ripped open. The upper bone and the lower bone in my arm had shattered to a million pieces. My hand was still intact. I don't know why I did this, but I reached down and picked my hand up, put it in front of my face, kind of turned it a little bit, and then just dropped it in the sand and let out this massive like scream as I, you know, the severity and the reality of the situation kind of hit me. And I knew in that moment we weren't under attack. I knew in that moment that I'd been the guy that had stood on and detonated the improvised explosive device. Now, we're trained in this situation not to go running in to help your friend because of the risk of setting off any other devices that were in the area. So I knew that the other 7 guys in my section weren't going to be running in to help me. I looked at all the blood, the claret and the fluid that was pouring out of me in the situation I was in. I was now in a 12-foot by 15-foot crater with 6 other improvised explosive devices around me. So if you had to write down on paper what is the worst possible case to evacuate a casualty from, this is probably it. I'm on a high feature, 12-foot by 15-foot crater, 6 IEDs around me, and my friends can't run in to help me. But that being said, I never thought I was going to die. It's the weirdest feeling. I had so much confidence in those other 7 guys that they would do exactly what they were trained to do, that I was going to get out of there, and they did. Now, I can't imagine how difficult it is to override every emotion you have as a human being to run in to help your friend when you see him in a situation like that. But they maintained the highest possible standards that you could ever imagine and did everything perfectly. I had a 19-year-old kid on his belly, like crawling towards me with a bayonet, stabbing the floor to search for other devices, marking left and right, so when the medic got to me, he could run straight in. I had someone on the radio calling in a helicopter to evacuate me. I had someone coordinating all around defense in case there was a small arms follow-up attack, and I had someone close to me just talking to keep me conscious all the time. Now, because they did that, the medic eventually got to me really, really quickly, jumped into this crater. I've no idea what he looked like. I had my eyes closed the entire time. He was South African, I know that. I could tell by his accent, and his name was Dave, that's all I remember. And Dave scooped up, my left leg was gone, there was still a nerve or a tendon attaching what was left of my thigh to my foot that was in my boot. The whole middle section was gone. So he scooped that up with my arm, put it on my belly, and then I've no idea how he did this, but he got me out of this 12-foot crater, got me down off this high feature, put me into a vehicle, and then the vehicle started driving back towards camp. Now, if you think we have potholes in the UK, try driving on an Afghan dirt road, because I was getting thrown around in the back of this thing, smashing my head off the sides, and you know, this guy's driving as fast as he could. But to get back in the camp, you had to go up an incline. And the ground is very loose, you know, it's like sand and rocks and things like that, so you had to drive quite aggressively. And we got to a point where he's driving and he's hitting, going left, going right, hitting the accelerator. And I think we went down a pothole. And as we did, the guy that just saved me fell out the back. Now I think it's funny because of the morphine, I'm coming up on the drugs now, until I went out after him. Now as the bottom of my back hit the tailgate of the vehicle, the guy driving just turned around, reached out and just grabbed whatever he could grab to kind of hold me half and half out the vehicle. And he ended up grabbing my femur bone that came out of my right leg. Now, he left the medic because that other group we'd left with in the day was at the bottom of the incline. There was 8 heavily armed men down there. He was safe. He drove me into camp, and the last thing I remember is this Chinook helicopter coming down to land, the sandstorm that it creates from the propeller blades, and then the heat of the exhaust beating down on me. And that was when I blacked out, and later found out, after meeting the entire medical team on the helicopter after, that they had classed me as clinically dead.
We're going to come. Thank you, Mark. Wow. So one of the things I heard you say was, despite, it's miraculous you're here, but you never had PTSD.
No.
Despite that. So, what do you put that down to? Do you think?
I have no idea.
So then, okay, I'm going to ask you about what happened when you were dead.
This is a stupid question. Has anyone ever died before? No? I'm sure everyone has their own unique experience, right? But what I can tell you is what I experienced that moment I passed out. It was a level of exhaustion that I could never, ever, ever replicate. And it sounds corny, but it is literally like you can feel your soul leaving your body. But I wasn't scared. I wasn't petrified about anything. You remember when you were a kid and you used to run downstairs at Christmas and you had that feeling in your stomach and you were so excited? And then your parents came down and the whole day you just loved, and your grandparents loved you, and you just felt like safe. Imagine times that by like 1,000,000. It was the most incredible feeling, which is bizarre, isn't it? You'd think you'd be scared and you panic, but it was like you were going home. That was my experience. And I almost got disappointed when they woke me up 3 days later. I'm like, put me back, I don't like the world. But it was so, like, if I could give it a word, it'd just be like love, like complete. And it was like, wow. I'm sure everyone has their own unique experience of it, but that's what it was like for me. I wasn't scared at all. But that was my experience. Other people might have something different, but it felt great, considering.
So maybe that was knowing that that's what we come from and that's what's always there. Maybe that was the.
I don't know, because that wasn't me prior to this.
Yeah.
I would never talk like this.
Yeah.
I was just a young, dumb bloke running around full of testosterone, doing blokey stuff.
Yeah.
But that experience kind of changes you a bit. And I tell you what was really incredible is the next bit. So I don't remember any of this, but this is what I got told by the medical team. So I got put in the back of a helicopter, and there was another guy that was injured, and he got shrapnel in his tricep and in his back. So the way we were prioritising casualties back then is if you've got a guy that's dead and a guy that's dying, as harsh as it sounds, you have to ignore the guy that's dead and focus all your attention on the guy that's dying, so you don't have 2 guys that are dead. So they felt me for a pulse. I didn't have one. They couldn't get any intravenous lines into me because all my veins had collapsed because of the blood loss. And when they put an oxygen mask on me, it should have steamed up to show that I was breathing, but it didn't. So they literally went, this guy's gone, leave him. Luckily, one of the medics walked past me to get some equipment to go back and work on the other guy, and he said that my eyes started to flutter, which meant that my heart was still beating. So he then alerted some of the other medics to come over and work on me. And 3 days before I was injured, whoever's in charge of the military medical world had given the green light for this new technique to be used, where if you can't get intravenous lines into somebody's veins, you can drill into their tibia and their fibia. Problem being, I didn't have any tibias or fibias. So Charlie and Millsy, the 2 medics on the flight, completely made up a procedure. And you've got to bear in mind as well, right? We're not in a hospital. We're on the back of a Chinook that's doing this, going left to right. It's full of sand and dust. And the number one thing that the Taliban wanted to do at that point was shoot down an aircraft. So they're trying to avoid ground fire, and they don't know what to do. So they just guessed. And what they ended up doing was getting, I think it's called an EZO drill or something. It's a medical drill, not like a Black & Decker. And they drilled into the front and back of my hip, and they put a line in. They said the first time it didn't work because my skin was too loose. So they pulled out, tightened the skin, went back in, and they said 3 minutes later, I was awake and responsive and coherently answering their questions. They said my main concern, before I deployed, I had spent, I think it was 125 quid on the Nike ID website where you can customize trainers, and I had my nickname on them. That was my main concern. I wasn't going to get to wear these trainers that I spent 125 pounds on. But then they took me back to Camp Bastion again. They took me to the field hospital, and the surgeons, you can imagine the mess. Normally I have pictures that I got of the on the operating table. They had to surgically amputate both my legs above the knee and my right arm above the elbow, where all the skin, the muscle and the tissue was still healthy and viable. But yeah, that was my Christmas Eve nearly 20 years ago.
So, and there's a long journey we're going to go on to talk about, but just before we do that, what's your view of war now, having come out the other side?
What kind of view? I mean,
well, what we talked about. what you went in to fight for, and what you feel the reality is now, and the difference between those.
Yeah, so politically, I see things very differently now, and I see, excuse my language, but the bullshit behind it all, and the money and the greed and all the bollocks. As an individual, so the reason I joined the military, I won't go into detail. I got bullied at school. I despise bullies, and I just looked at, people around the world as the ultimate bullies, and I wanted to stop them from hurting like innocent and good people. So I joined the military to do that, and I was there for the guy on my left and the guy on my right. The politics, when you're 21, you've no idea. I don't care. All I wanted to do was look after my friends, try and help these people, and then come home to my family. That was it. In terms of the experience, I mean, you can't replicate it. As an individual, this might sound weird as well. I say a lot of weird things. I'm grateful for the experience of how it's helped me develop as an individual and grow. You can't get those experiences anywhere else, I don't think. But yeah, I look at it very differently now. And I always get asked, would I dissuade my children from joining the military? We were having a conversation earlier. This lady's son's in the military now, and I was saying, like, take advantage of everything. If my kids want to go in, I'd be like, just go in for you, not for anything else. I went in to serve, but I would say selfishly now, if you're going to go in, do it for you. Get everything you can out of them. Grow as much as you can. Take advantage of every opportunity, and just have a good time.
Yeah. So miraculously, 2007, the incident. In 2009, you threw away your wheelchair.
Yep.
How and you talk about that process going to America. I think you said that was the hardest thing. I think, or one of the hardest things in your life.
One of them,
So, do you want to share about how you managed that?
For sure. What I didn't say is I was the UK's first triple amputee, I think since the First World War. And what I noticed, my experience was when I was in my wheelchair, we're very lucky because we go into London all the time. We're at Epsom, that kind of way. And we'd always go to these fancy events like celebrity things, and I'd never done that before, coming from Plymouth. But I'd meet a lot of people, and they'd always shake my hand and say, so when are you starting training for the Paralympics? And I was like, is this all you can do as a disabled person? Is that the only value you add is by being and I hated it. And I rebelled against it, because my goals were to become a full-time prosthetic user and to get a new career and grow my family. Now in hospital, I spent 6 weeks in hospital in the beginning, and 3.5 weeks into that stay, the UK's leading medical professional in the field of amputations told me I had no chance of ever walking, because he'd never met anyone with one leg missing above the knee that successfully used prosthetics full time, which was a pretty low point for me during that phase of my recovery. But because we were blessed with the internet, I had to use a dongle back then to get on the internet. I found a triple amputee in America called Cameron, who was hit by a train when he was 15. And so when I went to rehab, no one knew what to do with me because they'd never dealt with triple amputee before. And everyone wrapped me in cotton wool, and it was like wading through treacle. Now I'm showing them these videos of this guy in America, like, he's doing this, he's doing that. His injuries were almost identical to mine. But no one wanted to take that risk. And I get it, there's, if you want to call it liability issues, I can say I hurt myself. But I was like, well, listen, I can see this guy doing it. I've got the same prosthetics he's got, almost identical injuries. I can do the same. Anyway, they wouldn't really take a chance on me. And so I started communicating with this guy and with his team over in Oklahoma. And they started helping me and coaching me online about how to get around without my legs on, without a wheelchair, and how to, navigate areas like this and in the real world. Because in rehab at that point, they didn't really let you out of a building. You went between some parallel bars, walked around inside, and that was it. If you went outside, everyone lost their shit. Like, get him back in, get him back in. So I asked for the chain of command. I've got this guy here. They invited me out to America, and I said, I've got an opportunity here to go out and learn, but not just for me, because although I was the first triple amputee, by the time I left in July 2010, there were 33 of us. Wow. Not to mention all the bilateral double above knees, so I could learn stuff and bring it back. The chain of command came back and said, no, you can't go. And so I spent a couple days angry, I think, and frustrated, talking with my wife, waking up at 2, 3 in the morning, just like couldn't get it out of my head. And then she said, look, I know you want to be a good soldier, you want to do what you're told, but none of these people are going to be in your life in 10 years. So if you don't take this opportunity now, you're probably going to regret it. So I booked a plane ticket for the 9th of June 2009. I went AWOL from the military. I just thought if I'm going to get disciplined, I'll just take it on the chin when I get back and see what happens. Flew out to Oklahoma City. They didn't let me take my wheelchair, which was terrifying at that early stage of my recovery. They didn't let me take anyone with me, which was terrifying because everyone was running around doing everything for me at this point. And I jumped on a plane, went out to
How did you, jump on a plane? Without the wheelchair, how were you actually getting around?
So I put my legs on, I packed all my bags, I drove from
Plymouth
to
you already had
Heathrow.
the legs at that point, sorry.
I did have legs, yeah.
Okay.
But so it takes a bilateral above knee amputee anywhere between 300 and 500% more energy to do anything than an able-bodied person. So me driving from Plymouth to Heathrow, going from Heathrow to Dallas to Oklahoma, is probably like an able-bodied person running 2 marathons back to back, and it was horrible. I was in unbelievable amounts of pain. My sockets come right up to my groin. All my groin was cut. I had blisters on the end of my leg. In the Royal Marines, we pride ourselves on personal hygiene, and people joke that we shower 400 times a day. And so I stank because of this, and I was really conscious about that because I couldn't get to showers and do my usual routine. But I got out there, and then they just whipped my ass for 3 weeks solid. Cameron flew in from California to mentor me. The team that build the legs, program the legs, build the arm, and train you. They just took me under their wing for 3 weeks and they hammered me. It was like a Rocky training montage. Every day I had to get up, and where I'd normally get in a chair because my back hurt or I was sore or blistered, I had to get up an hour before everyone, put on some creams and lotions and potions, put my legs on, just get used to them, warm myself up, and then go about a whole other day of training and living. And at the end, this is what I'm saying when I said I compare it to Royal Marine training mentally and physically, because at the end of that 3 weeks, on the last day we were in Texas, and we went to a roller coaster park called Six Flags, and the idea is to kind of show you that you can do normal stuff. And my daughter was young at the time, and I've got 2 more now, and I wanted to do those normal everyday things. And it was 107 degrees, and we would walk around for 6 or 7, and I'd sweat, and then my body rehydrated with its own sweat 7 or 8 times. And as I was walking back to the car in the car park at the end of the day, the way I felt physically and mentally was the same as at the end of Royal Marines training. We have to do a 30-mile run across Dartmoor with weight in 8 hours, and the way I felt at the end of that was the same as walking through the car park to get back to this car at the end of the time in Texas. But that trip changed my life, and I haven't used a wheelchair now since the 9th of June 2009.
Wow.
And they told me I'd never be without it. I don't own one. I came back and immediately gave the electric one and the manual one to the hospital to get rid of the temptation. And then I've just been living this way ever since as a full-time prosthetic user, traveling the world.
Wow, you are beyond inspirational, Mark. It's incredible. And then 2016, you did go into the Invictus Games. So it took a long time to get to that. You didn't want to, I think. Was that?
I rebelled against adaptive sport prior to getting injured. Like I said, I boxed in the Marines as a teenager. I competed as an amateur kickboxer and in Muay Thai. So I didn't really do any of the sports that were on offer. And if I'm being honest, and I say this with humility, I kind of looked down my nose at adaptive athletes. I thought it was all about pity and sympathy, and they weren't real athletes. I found out quite quickly I was very, very wrong. But in 2016, every year at Christmas I sit down and I write all my goals out in my office at home, and I realised 2017 was going to be my 10-year anniversary. So I wanted to do something that I hadn't done, which was sport. And the Invictus Games was 2 years old, and I'd seen my friends go and compete and win medals, which was wonderful. But I also seen when the cameras were off and all the fanfare had gone, how they got their confidence back, how they were husbands and wives again, how they were excited about starting new careers, all the things that they were struggling with in rehab. I saw the power of what sport did for them. So I thought I'd give it a shot and apply. I honestly thought I had no chance of getting in the team because I wasn't in any of those circles and I didn't know any of those people. And I think 940 people applied and you had like 83 spots on the team. Fortunately, I managed to battle my way through the rounds and get there, and I made the team. So I went out to Canada in 2017. I had set my goals like I always do. I had failed to achieve those goals, so I came back home, kind of refocused and thought I'd go at it again the following year. Was very fortunate again to get in the team the following year, and the competition was just as wild that next year. Then this time I went out to Australia. This time achieved what I set out to achieve, and then kind of just retired from that. But it was a journey.
It was several sports. Swimming, what was it? Several sports.
Swimming, rowing, hand cycling, shot put, and discus. So there wasn't a day in the 2 years, there wasn't a day at both games where I had a day off. And I realised in Australia how stupid I was, because some guys turned up to do shot put on the first day, then went sightseeing in Australia for a week. And I couldn't do it. As soon as I finished one sport, I went back to my room and just got into the zone for the next sport and the next day. It was pretty intense, mentally and physically. But I knew it was a week of my life. I just needed to lock in and make sure that I did what I wanted to do. But it was a real big lesson for me in humility. You know, the way I kind of was like, adapt to sport. I just turn up because I'm fit and destroy everybody. But it was, I looked at it so wrong. And it just opened my eyes and it humbled me a bit.
Wow. I don't think there's anything you can't do, is there?
I can't cook. No.
So your life now, running, being an inspirational speaker, obviously, but running your businesses for leadership, development, motivation, Kaizen. Tell us about the Kaizen Summit. Is it
Kaizen Summit? Yeah, I spent 15 years raising money for military charities. It became like my new purpose, and I kind of neglected this side of my life, like earning money, building businesses and that kind of stuff. And about 2 years ago, another veteran approached me, and he wanted to build a company to do with leadership, going into corporates and teaching leadership. And there's tons of guys that do this, right? But what was different is that we were partnering up with a bunch of Navy SEALs in America. There's quite a famous Navy SEAL called Jocko Willink. We went over there and we effectively franchised but modified what they've been teaching for 15 years. And it's all wrapped up. It's about behavior of leaders. It's not like a corporate cookie cutter program. We talk about behavior, extreme ownership. Every problem is a leadership problem. So it's all about accountability and those kind of things, and teach different ways to lead. And it just, I'm very fortunate in that a lot of my friends are from the top tier military world, so from my world and the special forces community, and we built a group of people that are quite difficult to get your hands on unless you know them, if that makes sense, because these guys are out doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So we built a very unique team, and we go into corporates now and we teach this 12 module program, and then we offer a mentorship at the end, so you could be partnered up with whichever mentor you resonate with, and they can help you. Like I said, it's more to do with your behaviors and discipline and mindset and all these kind of things. So it kind of works in your professional and your personal life, and it's very, very different to what anyone else offers. And I'm currently in the process of putting all that online and building a membership site where people can dip in and dip out of it and learn this stuff online, because we deliver it one-on-one, online, or some sort of hybrid model. And it's great. I've been able to figure out, because when I was first leaving, I was like, well, what do I do? And it's quite funny because they had these assessments at the time where you rang up and they knew my situation, and you do like a 45-minute interview. And the first one I did, they said, and I was in a wheelchair when I did the first one, they said I should be a labourer on a building site. So like a human wheelbarrow, just load me up with bricks and push me around the building site. And the second time was a checkout assistant in a supermarket, which, is great, but not really my thing. And then the whole speaker thing came along, and being in front of different groups, different people, and having different conversations opened my mind, and it opened doors and opportunities.
Yeah.
And then
I mean, that's
thought,
incredible. They didn't recognise your superhuman potential, like surviving what you've survived, and
Yeah, it was just bizarre. But now I realise, like, I don't have to be 100% physically able to be able to add value to the world and create a business and to help and support other people. And then with that cool group of people that I'm lucky enough to be around now, we can all go out and take what are very unique experiences from, I haven't sat down and calculated, but it's got to be like 250 years of combined experience in the top tier military and the special forces world. Give that to corporates and civilians and help them and mentor them. So yeah, it's really, really unique. It's a lot of fun. And I'm kind of in a place now where I didn't think that I'd ever be. So going back to, you said at the beginning, would I have changed anything? I had a plan, and I was talking to some people about it before. I had a plan for when I rejoined the military of what I wanted to do. If I was successful with that plan, I don't think my other two children would have been born. I probably wouldn't have got married. That would have involved me being away for long periods of time and not having any communications with people. This has now brought me to a much more fulfilling place, I think, and it's enabled me to grow my family, to grow businesses, to raise money for charity, to find a new purpose in life, and to try, like through what I do on social media, to share that, so it can hopefully other people will see that. And there are a lot of people in my situation, not just from the military, but all over the world, who are asking the questions that I was asking in my head when I was in hospital. What's my career going to look like? My family going to look like? Have I got a life? Hopefully by doing things like this and going on social media, it answers those questions for people. So I'm very lucky in what I've been able to create and the people that have come into my life.
Final question for me. I just how do I word it? That drive and determination to get rid of the wheelchair, to live, to survive when you've died, and all the things that you're doing now. Where do you think it has come from? Like what? Yeah, was it always in you? What's given you that massive determination?
It kind of always has. I was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s, and people laugh at this, and I used to laugh at this and like cringe when I say it, but it's actually, from a mindset perspective, I've understood how powerful it is. But I grew up looking up to like Arnie and Stallone and all these action heroes, and so like when I was going through Marines training, that's how I saw myself. And it's like a switch that you can turn on and turn off, and it's not about like the muscles in the movies, it's the mindset, and they're like the heroes. They're the strong, masculine alpha guy, but the gentleman as well. And that kind of drove me from a very, very young age, and it kind of magnified through Royal Marines training. And I've just always believed that if someone's in front of me and I've seen what they can achieve, like when Cameron, I saw him walking, I'm like, well, why can't I? If I just follow his physical and mental steps, surely I can get results similar to that. It's not that complicated, I don't think. That's why now in business, I'm looking at billionaires and I'm going, okay, they can do that.
This time next year, Rogers.
Exactly. If they can do it, why can't I? I just follow the process.
Yeah. Oh, Mark, amazing. Thank you so much, Mark Ormrod. Hey, we have a roving mic. Do we have a roving mic? I had loads of questions. Where's the roving mic? Sadie, beautiful Sadie, membership manager. See Sadie, if you're not already a member, we'd love you to become a member and hear more beautiful, amazing stories like Mark's. So the question from this lady over there, Sadie. If you could just say introduce yourself, like who you are a little bit, briefly as well, because we'd love to know who's here.
Hazel. So I'm literally obsessed with breath because I'm feeling quite. That was you couldn't hear a pin drop. I've never been so focused on someone in my life. It's so deeply moving. It really is.
Thank you.
So I'm quite emotional, right? And so I'm taking a moment. So I'm obsessed with learning all I can about human flourishing versus human struggling. And I live locally. I live in St Margaret's, and I have two children, two beautiful children, 12 and 13. And what I observe is the change as they grow up and they go into a school environment. And a school environment is in many ways like a work environment. You're having to deal with and navigate all these humans, right? You're also having to navigate learning. You're also having to navigate sitting on your backside. And I'm observing how much my children have changed over the years, and that's part of brain development and all the rest. But what I'm noticing is a rising of mental health struggles. I know many parents in the local community with children who are really struggling. So my question to you is, how much do you charge? And would you come into my local secondary school and local primary school? Because you are fucking inspiration. And I want children to hear your story. That's my first question, how much you charge. My second question, and I don't mind paying for it, I'm going to pay for this, because I believe so much in what you've just shared. So there's no excuse from the schools going, well, we can't do it, because we fucking can't, because I'll pay for it. So my second question, which I think is really important, is you mentioned the Navy SEALs. The Navy SEALs are unique. They're on a different level of human consciousness, right? They are elite, trained to use their mind in a way that no other human can fully understand the potential of that mind. Are you able to share a few things that they do to train their mind? Because it is training your mind as much as you train your body. Because I think that's a key thing that's missing in schooling.
Yep.
Is how do you train your mind so that the ego, the judge, the critic, the whatever else, the put me down, the humiliation, the shame, to be quite frank, doesn't take control so that you close down from learning. Because many kids are just closing down, shutting off, zoning out. Yeah? So can you share a few things that these Navy SEALs do to train their minds to that level?
So for them, similar to the Royal Marines training, is because you get put through such physically and mentally intense training, you develop as you go. Like the whole system is designed to break you and take you to your lowest possible point. They're not really, like when I finished Royal Marines training, I didn't really know how to be a soldier, because all they wanted to do was just break you, and you didn't have the mental capacity to learn that much because you're just exhausted all the time. But you develop as you're going. For me personally, and I'm sure a lot of Navy SEALs are the same, you break down the training, and you just take it little chunk by little chunk, and you get through bit by bit, and you tick a box and tick a box, and I didn't even realise that I was doing it at the time, but you're growing mentally as you go. But it's extreme, right? They do that water torture thing and the log, and they're there for hours, and they're going hypothermic. They got doctors to make sure. We do similar stuff to that. We get put down in underwater in helicopters and span around in the dark, and we have to get out without dying. They put you in some extreme situations, but each thing they do, you realise what you're capable of as a human being. This is the thing that annoys me about the world, is we forgot what we're capable of, and we put people on pedestals, and we're like, oh, they're so lucky, or they're talented or gifted. It's like, well, no, they just worked hard and they're disciplined and they've got the mindset. Now with kids, I'm not going to advise you to water torture your children, but things like sport, my son, I don't watch football. I've got no interest in football, rugby, any of that. He's done football and rugby from a very young age, which has developed his resilience. He's had to lose a lot of games, fail a lot, bounce back from that kind of stuff. My daughter does it in gymnastics. She does like drama, so she gets rejected a lot. Learning all those things instead of wrapping them in cotton wool is what builds their resilience when they're kids. I'm about to now take my son, he's going to be 15 in October, and I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so I'm going to take him to the gym, and I'm going to be responsible, right, and I'm not going to get him to hurt him, but if you've ever been in a fight, or you've ever been overwhelmed by someone, it's a horrible feeling. Like the first time I competed in Jiu-Jitsu, I wanted my mum. I was like 38 years old, and I wanted to go, but that feeling, like it's rare you can feel that unless you choose to put yourself in that situation. So in a safe environment, I'm going to get him, and I'm going to get people like, not hurting him, but like making him feel overwhelmed, and like, to get that feeling where he wants to quit. So he just comes away and learns something. He experiences what that feeling is. And then, you know, you've got to put yourself in difficult situations out of choice. And the world's so easy nowadays, isn't it? Like, I sat in this really posh hotel last night and ordered a Wagamama's. I didn't have to hunt for my food, you know, avoiding saber-toothed tigers like back in the old day. I just ordered it and it came to me. You know, everything's so convenient and easy now. We don't put ourselves in difficult situations, so you've got to consciously choose to do it. And that's what will develop your mindset.
Final thing.
Yep.
And then I'll give the mic over. You talk about sport. So yeah, absolutely, sport builds resilience and all these things and all these beautiful things, but also it can go the other way. So, you know, many kids are good at sport, but they can also really struggle because they're not performing to the level they want to perform to. What about the kids that drop out of sport? There's so many kids, girls especially, they do not continue with sport because they don't think they're good enough in some way. Boys sometimes fall out of sport as well. Have you got any thoughts around these kids who fall out of that because they perceive themselves to be not able to do sport for whatever reason?
I think from a parent's point of view, it's just like coaching them and kind of, kids don't know what an ego is. You know, saying that you're not good enough is just your ego telling you you're not good enough. Like, they don't understand that actually it's good to suck at something because it builds resilience and it builds character. They just want to win everything all the time and get the medals. So you've got to kind of coach them. My boy cried the first time he lost a football game. You know, I mean, I had to explain to him, not in one big motivational lecture when he was 6, but drip feed over the years, that what this is going to give to him when he gets older. Now this is, again, I know I say a lot of silly things. I got bullied a lot at school and I hated it at the time, but now I realise like what a gift it was to teach me. Like, I experienced all those horrible feelings, the anxiety and the stress, the bullies coming after me and the you know, fights and everything, but it made me stronger in the long run. And now, you know, I know what some of those people do now and I'm winning. You know, but I wouldn't ever want to put my kids through that, but there's other ways, like sport's just one example, where you can develop those characteristics in them.
Okay, and then finally I just want to share the Marianne Williamson quote. Have you heard of the Marianne? Yeah.
The what, sorry?
Marianne Williamson.
No.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, our deepest fear is that we are more powerful beyond belief, or something like that.
Powerful beyond measure. Yeah.
It's really that you don't get that. I never got that.
Yeah.
It's taken me probably until last month to truly get that. It's so powerful. And I'm going to hand the mic over.
Cool.
I mean, I think it's like what you said about the Matrix, is that the system is conditioning young people, humans, to be good taxpayers, go to war, do the thing, but not realise our magnificence and greatness. It's counterculture to realise your
But also, like, you
magnificence.
look at school. Like, imagine if I was a teacher now and you were the pupils. Every single one of you learns differently. You know, some of you might need to be outside doing stuff, some of you love listening, some of you need to see stuff, but I have to teach you in the way that works for me. And then if you don't get it, then your class is stupid. And if you can't turn up and sit in an exam room on an exact day and exact time location and vomit everything I've taught you onto this paper and you don't get a good score, then you're an idiot. And then kids are like, well, I'm stupid. I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I was a clown at school. I have no clue how I ended up getting 10 GCSEs. I surprised myself. I got an A. One of them was in English. It was English oral because I used to argue about Shakespeare. I don't know anything about Shakespeare. I just didn't like the girl in class, so we argued all the time, and I got an A. But I don't know anything. I'm not clever. And my grades say that I am,
You're
but I'm
clever.
not.
You're clever.
I just
Mark.
figured it
Very
out.
clever. Alex,
That reason I'm
thank.
taking you to local schools. That exact thing you shared there is the exact reason that you'd be so
Yeah, exactly.
Probably get
yeah.
banned.
Yeah, thank
Hello,
you.
mate.
We should start a new school. Let's start a school, Mark. Thanks,
Firstly, thanks so much. A really inspirational story. My name's Alex. I run a CEO collective, so helping them with all the challenges which come with navigating and scaling a business. You mentioned something in the speech around that first year. There was it 60 people started, only 14?
64 started, 16 finished.
Only 16 finished.
Yeah.
Big challenge is always how you hire people, how you build culture, and it's always about how you can get those people into your organisation. What separated the 16 that made it? Because it's at the elite level, really, because even the 64 probably at the top of the top. It'd be just good to get your thoughts on what kind of character traits, types of people, behaviours they exhibit.
I mean, there's so many different things. Some of them just were from backgrounds where it just wasn't feasible to go back. You know, extreme poverty, poor family life. That wasn't me. I had a great upbringing. I was just too stupid to quit. And I couldn't, in my mind, I couldn't in my mind handle what I classed as the embarrassment and shame of quitting and getting back on a train and going home and telling everyone, my uncle, that I failed. I couldn't do it. Everyone had their own different reason. I used to, every once in a while, what they do in Royal Marines training, I'm sure it's the same in the army, is they'll get you out in 3 what we call ranks, lines, and they'll literally goad you into quitting. And every time I was like just about to step forward and someone did it just before me, and I used to smile inside. It was so sadistic. I was like I was taking their soul. I'm like, yes, that's another 2 weeks I can survive. And there was nothing, when I did it, there was nothing magical about it, just too stubborn to quit. But some people, I was young, some people were older and they'd already developed some resilience. Some people came from different branches of the military, so they knew that training is just bullshit. It's just a game, and they just played the game better than I did. But I guess it's the same in business. But everyone wants to be successful nowadays so quickly. And, you know, consistency beats intensity. You know, going like hard and fast in business, I don't think, some people can, like last for a long time. But like what we're doing in ours, we just want to be there in 15 years, 20 years and just keep building, and then slowly bringing in what you're talking about, the right people that fit, you know, and that are going to stay there a long time. But I get, you know, my thing, I'm a personal development nerd. I've loved it for 25 years, just reading and learning and growing and trying to be a better person and a better human, and in every area of my life. And you know, I wish more people were like that instead of watching Love Island. They were reading a book, you know what I mean? Instead of comparing themselves to some influencer, they were out there learning, developing and growing, because that's what the value is in life, you know? I hope that answered your question. Yeah, thank you. Oh, all the way at the back.
Bina. Well, I think there might be someone looking for a yoga class, Sadie. It's inside.
I can take yoga.
Yoga's inside today. Yoga's inside. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, you can.
We can create a new name for that asana.
Sorry.
Bina.
Thank you very much. You've clearly had a very unusual experience of what it means to be in the human mechanism. When you described that moment in the bowl, when everything changed for you, it seems to me that there were so many different layers of intelligence at play. So you were able to observe very clearly, listen very clearly, also have thoughts about your team and potential dangers and so on. I mean, I have 100 questions just about that. But has that moment changed the way that you understand how to operate? Like your personal operating system? Did that give you a different way of understanding?
I think it heightened what was already there. You know, like the whole thinking about my team thing, that's something that gets ingrained to you in the military. It's like, we call them oppos. So oppo first, mission second, self last. You're the last person that you think of. So even in that situation, like I wasn't concerned about myself, I was concerned about them. So I think it just heightened it. But yeah, I think in many ways it just heightened the way that I had operated anyway, and a lot of that was ingrained into me through the military. You know, because I joined when I was young, and you know, we're all a little bit selfish when we're young. We only think about ourselves, and being brought into that culture of looking after other people before you was a bit alien to me, but I kind of embraced it, and you know, I like it. I enjoy it. And now as a dad, it's crucial. You know, you've got to put your family before your own needs. But yeah, I think it just heightened everything for me, for sure.
I have a question.
Yep.
So many questions, but I'm gonna just keep it simple. So when I met you, I just feel there was such a presence and energy. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but it's like you have limbs. It's like you 100%, if anything, completely like full soul human. Like I just think that it's, you know, very charming sense of humor, and I find it like my brain is kind of like, how can someone go through so much pain and suffering and show up in this incredibly positive way? And how I understood you answering our questions, the training did influence you, which you know, obviously there's like the human and the soul that is born for the karmic life, but then there is this amazing training. So I'm so curious to learn more. But okay, give us like a one thing when things are really hard, whatever it is, like when, you know, it's the day when you wake up, like there must be like a low point for you when it's like really hard. What do you say in your head to yourself to like go through that, I can't do this today, or this is really too painful? Like there must be like some trick in your brain, like I want to walk away and just, you know, give me like one thing, because I think there's this incredible training over the years that you've experienced that helped you to become who you are today, which all we are very curious about. Please, you know, take us through the training. But yeah, just when something is really, really, really hard, whatever it is.
I don't know if this is going to sound negative or positive, but it's supposed to be. Like, life is just a series of shitty challenges that we have to overcome. You know what I was saying earlier about the way I felt when I died? That's what the bigger picture is. This right here is just literally a series of challenges that we have to overcome physically and mentally. And I've got to a place now where, and I haven't always been like this, right? There were times early in my rehab when I would throw a tantrum and throw my dummy out and complain about everything, say it's shit and it's hard. But now I get excited, because when things get hard, I know I can overcome it, and then I'm leveling up. You know, and I'm only 42 years old. You know, when I die at 115, because that's my plan, I just want to be in that hospital bed, literally thinking, shit, I squeezed all the juice out of that. You know what I mean? And wherever I'm going now, people are going to be going, well done, mate, good job. You know what I mean? So that's why, like business, it sucks, and I'm stupid, and I'm rubbish at it. But I like it, because I'm like, I know it's supposed to be like this. Every time someone says no, I'm like, cool, next one. Every time I mess up the membership website, I'm like, no, it's supposed to be this way. I'm not supposed to just coming out the gate, earning £1 million a month and, you know, cruising around the world. It's the challenge, that's the value in it.
Okay, I have
Bring
one
on
very...
the fucking shit.
Yeah.
Sama, sorry, I just have one very, very last one. So this is not coming from a judgment standpoint, but because you went through what you went through, when you come across people who have, let's say, the perfect life, and they still complain a lot, or, you know, the average person out there just going through, you know, it's too hot, the sun is too hot. Do you get like, what the fuck? You know, do you have this moment where like, wow, or do you have this full acceptance of us as a humanity, no matter that we have 4 limbs and I can dance and, you know, and I'm still gonna complain about the sun? I'm just using this as an example, hopefully you understand that.
Yeah, everyone's on their own journey, aren't they? And it's all relevant to them and their situation. This might get a little bit spiritual now, but I read these books a while ago. There's 3 of them. I can't remember what they're called, like Journey of the Soul, Destiny of the Soul, so I didn't read the last one. And it took, say again?
The Power of Now?
No. It was about this hypnotist, and he could hypnotize you into your past life. So I might have been like an 8-year-old girl called Anne in the Victorian era, and he talks about every time you finish life, you go up to that place that I felt, and then you get sent back down another couple million, and you're learning lessons all the time. That's why you have a kid and they're like super intelligent, and you say, oh, that's an old soul. That's like the top tier level. So I just look at people and go, oh, they're on a different stage of their journey. You know, they're at that whingy, whiny, complaining stage where the world's rubbish. Maybe in the next 2 or 3 cycles, they'll be where I'm at, I don't know. So yeah, I try not to judge people. But please don't think as well that I don't moan my tits off. I do it all the time. I'm the biggest whinge bag you'd ever meet. I moan about everything. But that's just to get it out of my system and then take that next step.
What's that saying? The universe gives you what you can handle, and you obviously can handle a hell of a lot. So,
and it's thinking things like that as well.
And the more you can handle, the more you can handle.
Like, yeah, you've been given it. It's hard, but the universe knows that you can handle it. Exactly.
Last couple of questions. Sorry, we always run over. It's African timekeeping.
Right. Okay. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, mate.
I'm not used to doing this without karaoke machine. I'm really sorry.
Well, you were singing Madonna earlier.
I was.
So
That is normally on a Sunday, but you're welcome to come along. Sundays at 1 o'clock at night. I'll stop. My name's Gareth Cook. I've come with Kate. I'm a senior leader in the London Fire Brigade. And throughout my career in nearly 30 years, I've come across a lot of Royal Marines and helped. I've got loads in my friendship circle, good people. One of the things that stuck out for me, and I want your opinion on this, is one of the tenets of the Royal Marine Commandos is, and correct me if I'm wrong, cheerfulness through adversity. Is that right? That's it, in the face of it, yeah. And that's so important. One of the things I've found throughout my career is that, especially in the last 10 years with social media, everyone seems to take themselves just that little bit too seriously. They're all just that little bit too good. Everything's just that little bit too good to be true. And outside of work, I'm a mountaineer, and trust me, that's pain. All right, but the pictures look great, but they're not. You know, we have a saying on the mountains: "Don't see me like this." You know, but from that space and where you've been, and as you've already sort of mentioned, some of the real sort of root dark places that you've been to, that teaching, to translate it into as we talk about entrepreneurs and bits and pieces, to translate it there feels to me like one of the most important lessons, and actually comes really well from the Royal Marine Commandos, because I think you actually display it beyond anything else you display. So what's your thought on how that can be translated into everyday life for people that haven't had the background that perhaps you've had or I've had?
Again, it's about putting yourself in those difficult situations and learning it like a skill. I get a lot of young men message me all the time asking me for help to join the Royal Marines. And I'm like, look, I can't, you should be given, and I'm talking about physical help, like train them, and I'm like, I'm not doing that, I'm not qualified to do that, you should have all this done. But what I can tell you is, you need to develop a sense of humour, you need to be comfortable being cold, wet, hungry, sleep deprived, food deprived, and you need to be able to laugh about it. You need to be covered in mud and not had showers for 5-6 days, not eaten, you know, be covered in blisters and sores and chafing marks, and have a bag that weighs 10 stone in your back, just look at your mate and then burst out laughing. That's what you need to do. You know, I've been in firefights when I've just uncontrollably, in my underwear, in my pants at like 3 in, with bullets going all over my head, hitting bits of wood above my head. And I'm
Is
just
this at work or in Plymouth?
This was in Plymouth, yeah. But it is a skill you have to develop. And this is, I don't want to go, like, sound like I'm bashing people nowadays, but, you know, there's not much adversity for people. This is why I purposely put my kids in these situations, to try and help them develop these skills and these character traits. Otherwise you just become a grown-up and you're like a spoiled brat, and you've never really had to develop those skills. And they're important, because, you know, the world does melt down every once in a while, and you need to be able to laugh about it.
Great question, thank you. All great questions. Final one?
Yeah, but it was a medical, like clinical one, and I think that gives you drugs to make you better. So it wasn't me that stopped my heart. Did you experience anything? No, yeah, so I didn't have that lovely people.
Okay, there's probably better ways to get that feeling.
Take some plant medicine and get through.
There you go.
Anyway, thank you so much. Any more questions? Final? No. So we can find you, Mark. We can join the Kaizen Summit as a membership. Can we?
You can, yeah.
£10 a month.
Yeah.
Seems like very cheap.
Well, I'm in the process right now of separating it. We've got the corporate side, and I'm building a civilian one, which is more of a personal development. You start on day one, you go through a 12-month journey.
I should have said very accessible. Sorry, that was what.
Yeah,
that's what I should have said. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, come find me on social media,
Yeah.
and then you can have all the links to all that. Drop me a message. I'm on every single platform you can think of, like 64 times a day.
Yeah, amazing.
So yeah, I'm easy to find.
And speaking, we'd love to have you back here. And Alex is running some events here. We're amazing to have Mark speak. Kate as well is running events. So we'll bring you to schools.
Brilliant.
We'll be like, yeah.
Better give my wife a call, ain't I? Tell her I'm busy.
Well, you can come and stay. So it's been, like Hazel said, the most. One more question.
Well, it's sort of a bit of an idea, because I was quite inspired by what you were saying about, and is speaking in schools something that you do?
I have done in the past.
Yeah.
And what I actually started doing recently was I took my story and I took situations from my childhood, and me and my best friend John, who's the one who got me to join the army, and I don't know if this sounds corny, I've travelled back in time as I am now to mentor myself and my friends. So, you know, the first book I drafted out was we're on some monkey bars and I fall off and fail, and that book's about why it's okay to fail, all the things I was just saying. And then I'm going to make one on resilience, and I'm going to make one on discipline, one on mindset. Very short books for the smaller kids, what they can read and develop. And then I'll try and combine them all into a book for maybe like a pre-teen. And then if I can get them into schools and turn them into some sort of online program, course, a YouTube series.
So, hi, I'm Kat. I've got a son who's 11, mad into rugby, rowing. They both row. Daughter, big into hockey goalkeeper. Like, you don't know what resilience you've got until you get massively hit in the neck. Wear your neck guard properly, and then get up, keep going, and then I see you at the end, and I'm like, that actually really hurt, but you kept going. And I think that a lot of us here are from privileged backgrounds where we can say, the kids' school my daughter goes to, that a lot of people would be able to be in a position to say, how much, let's get our kids in. And I think that with the business side of everything, it's kind of more of an idea, but maybe there's an opportunity to say, okay, you're spending, for every business place that I speak at, I'm going to speak at a school that is not in a position where the kids would have that opportunity, because I just see such a diversity of children around here, and there's a massive gap between the haves and the have not, even in here. So that was just kind of an idea, and I love the idea of the books. It's like buy one, gift one. That sort of thing is hugely inspiring. So I'm going to look up those books.
All right, cool.
Thank you.
Kaizen for kids.
Kaizen for kids.
What's your dream? What's your ultimate dream? Like, what would you love to achieve, ever?
At this stage of my life, it's all wrapped around business. I don't like talking about it because it sounds cringy, but I just want to be massively successful in business. And my dream is to stand on a stage at some point. I've got this mapped out, and I'm going to write a book. It's called 4 Fingers, 1 Thumb on a Smartphone, and it's how I became a billionaire as a disabled guy with a phone. That's it, because I think that's pretty cool. Don't steal my book idea. But yeah, I've only just...
So you want to become a billionaire?
That'd be nice.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I might be able to stay here then.
You'll be able to stay.
You are going to do good with all that money though, aren't you?
Well, so this is the thing, right? You can see I'm not flashy. This costs like £3.50 from Primark.
But the legs cost a few quid.
Oh, the legs
they?
are expensive.
Okay.
But yeah, I just do a lot of cool stuff. Especially in the veteran community. It sounds silly. I'd love to buy an island. And just have it full of veterans, especially ones that have got addiction problems. Just take them out of the world, stick them there with experts doing yoga, all these different alternative things, and just not fix them, that's the wrong way to say it, but help them to get better, whilst also doing what we teach, reminding them about the things they learned in the military, the discipline, the mindset, the honour, integrity, and all these things, and fix them. I just want to do really cool stuff with really cool people for the rest of my life.
Like Necker Island?
Funnily enough, I've just got a voice note, 100% serious, about speaking at Necker Island in October.
Brilliant. You'll be there. You'll be there. Amazing. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
We'd love to have one group photo if you're up for it, all together. Say we've been with Mark.
Keep putting this.
Been inspired. More than inspired. God, that's the inspired. What's the better word than inspired?
Bored?
But we need a photographer. He's going to lean on you. Lean on me,
Come in
baby.
the middle.
When you're not strong.
Anyone else wants to bend down?